All right, it's after 6:30. Let's call the meeting. Let's call the meeting to order and move on down. Corey, without Michelle, is someone going to be taking minutes, or how are we going to do that?
So I just started recording the meeting.
Okay.
So we're
Okay. First thing is the minutes from last meeting. Do we have minutes? I don't think I saw minutes. Corey?
We do not. Still need to have those minutes transcribed. So we'll send those out shortly, within the next week or so, to have everybody.
Okay. So we'll just move along from that. We have a point for public comment. I know we have Mayor Taylor and Mark Tefano are here with us. Either one of you want to say anything at this point?
Thanks, Howie. I'm just going to observe for a while. I appreciate the opportunity. If something pops up, I'll raise my hand.
Yeah, same here.
Fair enough.
Same here. Huh?
Okay, yeah. The problem is with Corey having this up on the screen, I won't see you, so you're going to have to give me an audio cue.
Okay, I haven't been bashful in the past. I'll jump in if I have to. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I can't argue with you on that one. But guys, you got the division reports. There's 3 pages.
Right.
Unsurprisingly, there's not a ton of stuff going on. Any questions or comments on any of that? I guess not. Once again, everybody, I can't see you because of the way the screen's set up. So unless if you have something to say, just pop on in audio-wise, or I'll miss you.
Howie, I'll have a question. I think Susan might be able to answer this, and Leanne, since Leanne's not here right now. The Deck the House, where are we with all of that, with the applications coming in the January 3rd through December 7th? How many Susan, do you know how? I know Susan's been real involved with it. How many applications do we have in, or does Corey, do you know?
Perfect timing. Leanne just jumped in.
Oh, cool. Great.
She may still be connecting with the audio.
Okay.
What was the question?
Deck the House, Leanne. How many applications do we have in? They ended December 7th. How many applications do we have in?
We have 12, and we decided to extend it through Sunday.
Great.
I would love to get to 20 this first year, but man, it's hard to get people, and they're already decorating their houses. I'm about ready to start knocking on doors. But yeah, we're kind of excited about it.
Okay. Well, even if we just had 12, I love it. It's new. I think it's a great idea. Something people can do with the pandemic. I'm excited about that.
Me too. Thank you.
All right. I have a question for you guys in general. Given the fact that COVID appears to be coming back with a vengeance, are there any plans or contingency plans for any changes to how we're operating, or it's still up in the air?
As far as buildings being open,
yeah, buildings, classes, offerings, any of that stuff.
Yeah, at this point, we haven't made any changes. I guess we'd adjust as the governor adjusted the order, and at this point, we're sticking to the small classes and buildings still open.
Right.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
That sort of reminds me, now that schools have closed, we have the Back to Cruise remote learning program. Are there any possibilities of expanding that, or do we think there might be an increased need, or are we capable? I mean, I know we have 26 students right now. Where are we with everything like that?
So, Charles, we had a staff meeting today. He did share. We have, I guess from 26, I think we're up to 27.
Okay.
Enrolled right now, but even with that, they're averaging roughly 18 kids on any given day. Anticipating it remaining that same sort of ratio of how many people show up on a given day compared to the actual enrollment. But we do have the capacity to expand, hopefully based on adding new staff. So we've got 4 interviews in the next week or so. And if hopefully those 4 will pan out, and that will be able to, I guess, allow us to add more students. I think at this point, our capacity really is roughly around 40, and that's looking at the room size.
Because Charlotte Mecklenburg's gone to all remote right now, I'm wondering if you'll have an increased demand based on that.
Yeah, and we'll adjust as needed. At this point, again, 40 is right around that number where we want to stay. But if demand demands it, we can move into the gymnasium part of crews and respond as needed.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question for you. I see that gym rentals have increased dramatically, but are we able to, with our restrictions, can the gym be used, or are we canceling all the reservations that we're getting?
Yeah, well, the gym rentals are small practices. Did he list what types? And then the badmintons and the pickleballs and such. I'll say it's the inquiry. So people really asking about it, but you're right. We aren't able to really go back full steam ahead as we were before March.
Right, because I know we're not on our Parks and Rec offerings. We're not running any of the classes like yoga or line dancing that require a number of people together. And I just don't know. I know the gym's a bigger space, but I'm not sure how we pull this off and whether there's a big inconsistency across the board.
No, we'd be consistent with what other public facilities are doing around Mecklenburg County. Some towns in the county are doing things a little different. They're offering soccer, some are not. Different sports. Some are offering some and others aren't. We do our best to be consistent. We want to follow our own opinions, but also follow what the county and the governor recommend, or the CDC.
Water.
Anybody else have any questions or comments on the division reports that we got? No, going once, going twice. Okay. Corey, you want to go up to your report?
Yes. So,
Corey, could you knock down can you take off the video so I can see everybody? Can we go back to the original screen? Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. So I do only have a couple of updates. I would love to say that this is the last time I'm going to say that the Heritage Trail is almost done, but we're still at a point where we're negotiating with NCDOT to allow us the encroachment agreement. Give me the full story. So we've got, we want to put the rapid rectangular flashing beacon on John Street. If you didn't know, the 485 project, the project limits expanded, and now NCDOT's project limit expands down to gridlock. So they are going to do improvements on John Street from 485 to gridlock coming into Matthews. What that did was the crossing of the Heritage Trail at John Street is now in their project limit, and the little small retaining wall that we built is in the NCDOT right away. They want to allow us to have the encroachment agreement to put in the flashing beacon until we get that wall out of the right of way. So we got to knock the wall down about 4 feet, or take it away roughly 4 or 5 feet away from the edge of the pavement. We have to move one of the telephone poles, and then we'll get the encroachment agreement, and then we'll be able to install the flashing beacon. So that's pretty much where we are with the Heritage Trail. Slowly but surely making progress on the dog park. Still getting some answers back from Louisa, what's going to be required with the limited grading that we do have planned. Hopefully they tell us none as far as any mitigation of water on the site, but still waiting to officially get that message. You heard one of maybe not the last, but one of the previous board meetings, town board was somewhat comfortable with the department pursuing sponsorships within the dog park. So Leanne is working on that, and we're going to return to the board with some exact examples of what that sponsorship could look like. And what that means is opportunity for additional amenities within the dog park and just enhancing the look of it. Really, those are all the big updates I have on projects.
I've got some questions. Yeah. Who's talking? Go ahead. Whoever was, shoot.
Yeah, this is Scott. I have a question on the, looks like they're finally threatening to finally be done with the road project in front of Morrow. So the trail that was supposed to go underneath the road, how's that going? I can't really see it. I see that they have tools down there and they're bringing stuff up and down. But it looks like I think they're finally done scraping and painting and painting and scraping and building and all that stuff. Do we have does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't have I'm honestly not sure if a schedule has been created for the pedestrian tunnel or the greenway going underneath trade. Because, that's going to be a separate project. So they had to finish the expansion with the culvert for the water, and then the culvert for the people will be a separate project. CJ sort of lead on that. I haven't gotten an updated schedule. I'm not sure if he even has one beyond what NCDOT said about the first part and schedule when it will be done. But as soon as we get more information, I'll share.
Have any estimate of time? Do we have any? We don't have any idea at this point, right? Okay.
No.
Right. Over in Crestdale, there's quite a bit of work being done, sidewalks and whatever. Is that part of the Heritage Trail or is that a separate project?
Separate project. So we got money from I'll just say from the state to build that multi-use path from Matthews Chapel along Crestdale down to where it terminates at Matthews School Road. So that's that section of multi-use path, 10-foot concrete. The town's next ask or next project will be then taking it from Matthews School Road to Matthews Bend Hill Road. Maybe working with Harris Teeter, hopefully getting some additional funding to help make that happen, but that's going to be the next part of that.
Okay, question. Have we heard anything on the Rosedale Cemetery in months, or is that just still kind of just sitting out there?
Yeah. Honestly, I have not talked to Jay in a while about it. The last conversation was they have been sort of inspecting it a little bit more frequently, but they have not reported. I have not gotten a report about any progress on the fencing and what the cemetery is actually going to look like once it's done.
Did we create an access path, or that still doesn't exist back there to the cemetery itself from Monroe Road or from somewhere adjacent to that?
Let me double check. Per the plan, it would be if a pedestrian were walking, say at Galleria near Walmart, they should be able to take the sidewalk along Monroe, take a right, and stay on sidewalk all the way into the development and then to the cemetery. But I'll confirm. I'm not sure what they've built. I haven't driven in the site in a couple of months, so I'm not sure what is on the ground right now.
And I can't remember with this project. Was this like Erickson's project? Was there cash attached to it, or there's no cash? We just have we have the cemetery and a right of free access, basically. Essentially,
that was it. Just the say conservation of the cemetery and input on the design of the fencing around it and the agreement to keep it maintained. I guess cut the grass and keep it functional as a cemetery.
Okay, another question is, anything changing on the Tennyson-Keziah Road parcel that we're supposed to get at some point?
We've got it. That land has been deeded to the town. Still discussing what possible projects could happen on that site. It is, majority of it, say 75% even, is in floodplain. So what we do with it, we're pretty unsure. One idea was a community garden, but in effect, the garden potentially could be, washed or underwater with any big rains, and I'm sure gardeners would not appreciate their plants, being.
And what's the size of that lot?
4 acres.
So it's not a tremendous lot. I mean, it's a floodplain but not wetlands? Is that right?
Correct. So it is essentially I think it's a 100-year floodplain, but just the position of it's pretty low, and it's right. The elevation in terms of the creek, it's right there, and it
is right there.
It stays pretty wet down there.
So there's pretty much a very small universe of things that we can realistically do with it without it costing a tremendous amount of money.
Yeah, I mean the part of it closer to the house, closer to Sam Newell Road, is say a little bit higher and more usable. Not sure what. No one has expressed any desire to use that home, so my expectation is that it will be demolished at some point. There is a storage building on the site that could have some value, but still just sort of determine what.
What acreage would be usable? Out of the 4 acres, is there anything usable? What's
Probably half of it. Probably half of it. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, depending on what it is. I mean, certain things we explore and see what could, be, I guess, installed down there or made use. It could just be when we say usable, it could just be some pollinator garden.
okay?
Just create that. No construction down on, within that floodplain, but closer to the Sam Newell, which probably maybe say an acre and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm completely guessing here.
Mm-hmm.
If the house were demolished, I just have to explore what, some options are.
Okay. Thanks.
Are there any other properties that are been offered to the town or deeded over in lieu of by developers, or that's the last one? There's nothing else in the pipeline right now.
Yeah. Well, there is. I mean, there's one that I'm not sure how much I'm able to say out in public, I guess, but the same developers that of the 4 corners, so right across the property that we're talking about, they own, it's roughly 10 acres right across the street. They, in conversation at least, they did offer that property to the town. Again, looking at it, it's a pretty big pond on the site. Elevation, of course, slopes down toward the pond. And I'll say that they wanted to deed it over as a park to the town because they couldn't accomplish what they wanted to as a development on that site. Because it's not, like I said, it's a big pond. Elevation is not conducive for, building a lot on it. So still making some of those decisions about it. I don't think there haven't been much conversation beyond a couple of talks with Public Works and Hazen about it. It hasn't gotten to the board level yet.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any questions for Corey?
Hey,
No?
Corey.
Oh.
Sorry. Corey, there's a question over at the MAC that's happening right now. So she's texting you, the staff member that's there.
Okay.
I just don't. Sorry. The answer would normally be absolutely no to the question that you have on your thing. So.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Howie. This is a long text.
Now, what the heck's going on? But all right, I'm not aware of any old business because our menu has been fairly light given COVID and that there's not much going down. I'm not sure if anybody else has anything from old business they want to talk about. No? All right. I guess we move on to new business. And the big thing tonight is the issue about possibly renaming Stumptown Park. Corey and I we attended the last Zoom Town Council meeting, and they decided to send it back to us, and we need to have a public input meeting. I suggest sometime after the beginning of the year. We're going to have to do it on Zoom to let folks have their say. I don't know about Corey, but I've been getting a lot of contact from pro and con. Actually, it seems to be a pretty hot issue, to put it fairly. Mark and the vets and Hooksor have reached out. I've also heard from the Women's Club, the Historical Society, a few former elected officials in town. And we need to set up a meeting. First question is when, and then the next thing becomes what kind of ground rules we want to set for it. One thing I am concerned about is there seem to be a lot of people who have an interest in this. Now, once again, they may not attend a meeting, they may all want to attend the Zoom meeting. So one thing we need to figure out is, do we want to put a speaker's limit like they do at town council meeting, which is 4 minutes per speaker? Another issue is that there are 4 or 5 different ideas already been raised, both from, I'll call it the veteran side and the historical side. It seems to be how the split is coming down. Do we want to publicize those in advance, but not foreclose, not tell people there's nothing else you can bring? But if some of these ideas are out there, I'm wondering if that might help the public discussion, or whether you guys think it might hinder it. And I did share with you the other day, I think there were 5 different questions or suggestions that have already been made, and I'll be happy to give them to you again if you need them. And that's really what I want from you guys, to know how you think we should handle this, how we should have the public meeting.
Let me add, looking at the other ideas that came out of, any may have been emailed to you or part of the Veterans Advisory Committee. I do think the question and the petition that's being made is to rename it Stumptown Veterans Park. So now I think it would be, healthy to, in conversation, maybe list some of the alternatives to the board when we do whatever the recommendation is, maybe share what some of the other options are. But I do think the recommendation that comes from this committee, and I'll say, if the Veterans Advisory Committee also makes a recommendation, it will just simply be limited to, I'm going to just say, thumbs up or thumbs down on that particular name for that park. So I guess I'm saying, we wouldn't make a recommendation to rename Balcom Park as part of this process. May list it as something that came up, say, in the bag of options, but I don't think it would be a recommendation from this committee or any other committee for that change at this point. That change would have to stand on its own as a separate petition. Maybe not a separate meeting, depending on what the board wants to do, but I guess we do think that's the way it would sort of go. Now, at the same time, the town board could, just simply make the decision to change a park name, a different park name. But just in terms of what this committee would recommend.
One of the things that Howie, thank you for getting that list out to us, because I think that's very helpful, because it talks about options that we have, and I really would like to publicize those options, because I think they are good. I think, there really are 5, and you did a good job of delineating. I think everybody's probably reviewed, and Howie, you may want to go over those again, the 5 different options that you came up with, because I do think that some discussion needs to go. I mean, ultimately, I understand what you're saying. It's either a thumbs up or thumbs down about renaming, but I think there are options beyond a thumbs up or thumbs down too.
Howie, I haven't seen or heard any of these options. Would you be so kind as to reiterate those?
Sure. One option is to change the name of Stumptown Park. I think we talked to Matthews Veteran Memorial Park. The Veterans Advisory Committee had at least somebody there talked about changing the name to Stumptown Veterans Memorial Park, as I understood it was one. Obviously, another option is to keep the name of Stumptown Park as is, not to change it. A third option is almost a hybrid, which would be to keep it as Stumptown Park, but to give a special designation to the Veterans Memorial in Stumptown Park, and suggest that signage and other things be created, like sub-signage on the park, to know that that's there and on the website. There are also 2 other properties that may come in play. And once again, I wish I could remember it. It's been mentioned to me. I can't remember who told. Herschel-Holsey is one name that came up. Another is Balcom Park, which may be named for a veteran already. And Becky Willits of the Historical Society reached out to me. I'd asked her to get back to us at what she knows about that. Just what background they can find. Also, we have 2 other lots right now. One is the Erickson property on Pleasant Plains, and the other is that Tennyson Keziah property we just talked about. And these are obviously be in addition to whatever's raised in the public meeting. This is just what I'm getting from people who have reached out to me. Just some ideas. And, so the question really becomes, one is, when we're going to do this meeting, what are the ground rules? and what do we publicize in advance? That's really the three things I think we need to get together tonight.
One of the things I would suggest, because I spoke at town commissioners meeting, and one of the suggestions, I like the fact that they have a 4-minute limit, and I like the fact they even have a time clock showing you the 4-minute limit. And then I also like the fact that you have to register by 3 hours before the meeting, but you can register anytime up to 3 hours before the meeting to speak. In other words, you can't just show up that night and speak. You have to register prior to the meeting. So I think those two things that the way the town council, our town commission does business, I think would be good ground rules for us to use as well.
I'll just add, I do believe we will have a good response, to the meeting, good attendance. 4 minutes, I think, is reasonable.
I think
to limit any one speaker. I do worry about the sign up with, looking at what the town board meeting is compared to what this is, whereas they're really intense motivation to move on, with the agenda. And so if you're not signed up by X, then, you can't speak. I would be weary to say that, to set a deadline to sign up and speak, given that, the entire meeting is, I guess, in terms of get feedback from people.
Why can't we leave the feedback loop till maybe 15 minutes before the meeting? That way we at least know what we're dealing with, but it gives folks a chance to come on in and do it up till that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
I hate to turn someone away, but I don't want 50 people to show up and then have to do it. My concern is that a number of people appear to be mobilized on this thing, and I would expect we're going to have a number of speakers.
Yeah.
So I think we want to do that. If we go that way, can we get the town to set it up like they do, where basically you're locked out unless unless your speaking time comes in, and with the time clock, that's fairly sophisticated set.
Yeah, we can set it up. I believe it's set up like a webinar where everybody can view, but not everybody can unmute themselves to speak to the entire group. That's very doable. Yeah.
Okay. I think that would be good. I agree with Howie.
I agree.
All right. And then is there a motion on the floor to have a speaker sign up and set a 4-minute time limit for public input at that meeting?
Also move.
Okay. All in second, please. Anybody? Second on that? Can't see a lot of folks.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
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 Or if you're in mute, put the thumbs up or thumbs down symbol. Okay, now the other question that comes with that is, when do we want to shut off a sign up for public input prior to the meeting? How far in advance do we want to? The question I have for whoever's going to be doing the technical stuff, are they going to need a little bit more time for that than 15 minutes or an hour?
Likely it'd be me working with Lori. I don't think it's too terribly difficult. But to be, say, on the safe side of 15 minutes, I'd say maybe half an hour. If it is I think 6 o'clock, 6:30 meetings work well. Mm-hmm. So if we said 6 o'clock cut off, I think that's fair.
So 6 o'clock cut off for sign up, and then the meeting starts at 6:30, right?
Correct. And of course, we certainly want to promote this for at least 30 days. So once we pick a date, honestly, maybe tomorrow, we begin to put information together to then publicize. And the meeting is not the only source for people to use to submit their feedback also. They can certainly email, call myself, Lori, you, anybody on this committee. So not meaning
we can do is we can compile the emails and make sure everybody gets copies of them. Anything that's submitted in writing, other than through that meeting. Can I make a suggestion? Though 6:30 for some folks who are still working off site is cutting it kind of tight. Most of us are at home, but there's still people who have to go to the office. I would suggest, I think 7 would be a little better for a public input meeting. That's just my feeling on it. I don't know how you guys think about it.
I'm fine either way. If you think that makes it more accessible for people, I think we should do 7.
Mark, you want to say something on that?
Well, there's a consideration I think we need to talk about as well. If there's 4 minutes for everybody speaking and let's pretend there's 50 or 60 people that want to speak, I mean, we literally could be here till midnight. So, and we don't want to limit the number of speakers. We want everybody to have their voice. So that's a consideration.
Right, but I think to some extent too, once you go through it, it gets to be, and I've seen this on like zoning issues and neighborhood issues at town council. It becomes almost like a Me Too kind of thing. I agree with Joe, so that may take care of it because there are feelings. There are feelings both ways. I'm just not sure that there's a tremendous variety once we get through the major issues or in favor or opposed. But once again, if it gets to that point, we can figure out what to do.
Can we?
I would hope it wouldn't be 6 hours.
To address Mark's concern, could we say that? I mean, let's say we do just a wild thing happens and we end up having 70 people want to speak. And no, I agree with Mark. We don't want to stay here till midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning. Do we cut it off at a certain time after the 4 minutes, the speakers, and then reschedule it for the rest of the speakers? I don't know. I mean, I certainly want everybody to be able to speak, and I don't have any objection to I certainly don't want to stay here till 1 o'clock in the morning, and I don't think anybody else does either. And maybe that's not a problem. Maybe we won't have that.
Well, Howie, I agree with Sandy. Maybe we should automatically schedule 2 or 3 meetings as a contingency for when you go out for public input. Just to say these are the following days and times that we'll be having public input if necessary, if it needs to carry over. But at least that gives the public awareness that there are options in case there's too many in one particular evening.
I think if we typically what I've done with say park public input meetings is we set the meeting time, usually 2 hours, and then we back up 15, 20 minutes sometimes. And this is the cutoff for, say comments, and then last 15 minutes as a wrap up. Again, the meeting is not the only opportunity to say, let your voice be heard. I'd almost encourage if anyone is not able to speak, put it in writing to whoever, myself, the board, Howie, I do think I was given a timeline to present this information back to the board. If it's nothing more than, say, an update of maybe it is a request for a separate meeting, but if possible, I would like to make it happen in one meeting if we could.
Howie, may I make a suggestion, Howie?
Sure, please.
Similar to what we used to do in town council meetings, you as the chair would have the opportunity or the option to continue the public comment section. So what you might want to do is schedule the one meeting and see what the turnout is. And if, let's say you have 70 people, at whatever point you feel that the meeting is getting stale or too long, you can continue the meeting to the next day or the next time. But let's say only hypothetically 10 people show up at that meeting, all 10 would be able to express their comments and you'd get it all done in one meeting. So you really have the latitude then to just be flexible depending on what the turnout is at that meeting. But if you did have like I said, the exhaustive number of people that would show up, you have the latitude to extend it to a date in the future to have a continuation of that meeting and those public comments. The only thing on a town council meeting that we ever required was that if somebody spoke once and a meeting was continued, they would not be allowed to speak again later on. So that might be within your rules, but it's a suggestion that might help you out in this situation.
And I guess also letting them know there is, I think if I understood you correctly, Corey, they don't have to feel like they have to come speak. They can put it in writing and send it to you, and those comments will be considered as well. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes, I'm saying any comments will be shared, with the committee.
So in other words, they don't need to feel like the only way their voice will be heard is if they speak at the meeting. any emails will be also shared. I think that maybe is a good way of doing it.
Before I go to Mark, can we're going to have, if we set it for 2.5 hours, that means 60, is it 15, 30 speaking slots, if my math is right. What we can also put on the sign up that those are the slots. If there's an overflow, we will hear that at a separate date, so that when they sign up to speak, they're already told in advance, guys, if we don't get to the list, we're good. I'm just thinking that may be a way to help deal with it too, so that we're, people aren't standing there expecting to talk when we don't have an intention of letting them do it because of time limitations. Just a thought.
I think that's good.
Mark, you want to say something?
Yeah, two things. Number one is, I don't think it should be up to anyone on this committee to determine whether or not someone gets to speak vocally, whether they are going to be asked to, well, we don't have enough time, so submit it in writing instead. I think everyone should be able to have the opportunity to speak vocally if they wish. Secondly, is that if you're going to broadcast in advance what the schedule is for the public comment, and then you decide during the meeting that you need to have another meeting, that doesn't give the public enough time to reschedule themselves for an alternative date. So that was the reason why I suggested perhaps initially having 2 or 3 dates set aside, with letting everybody know that if they can't get into this particular session, there's others that are to come. And I think that would eliminate a lot of anxiety. Thank you.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this? All right, guys. So there are a couple of proposals on how to deal with the fact that let me just put something before you guys. Is everyone in the consensus that we want to put a time limit on the meeting at the get-go?
Absolutely.
Or is there a thought of just let it run and deal with it?
No, I don't think you want it at 1 o'clock in the morning.
All right. The question is, let's talk about we don't have a date. Let's talk about meeting 1. What is a time limit? What's the maximum we're going to let that meeting run, or you want to let that meeting run?
I'd say 2 hours has been call it a good baseline. I think after 2 hours, productivity, I'll say, drops off with people being able to receive the information.
Yeah.
So in other words, if we want to have a wrap-up session, that means that we're going to be 15 minutes less, so we're going to lose a couple of speakers. So it'd be an hour, 45 minutes worth of public speakers, or whatever comes close to it, divisible by 4.
Yeah, I mean, I'd add, if we want, we can add that 15-minute wrap-up to the end, so make it a 2 hour and 15.
Okay.
That's good. That's good.
But if we're going to do that, then we would know if we get to the sign-up list where we have more than 30 speakers, we know we have to overflow it to a different date. So we can put that on in advance, and also on the sign-up list saying, guys, understand that because of the time of this meeting, if you want to speak, because of where you signed up, you'll have an opportunity to speak, but not until January X at whatever o'clock. Is that fair to them? Is that giving them notice, or does that create another set of problems? I'm just trying to work through it.
I guess I still question whether or not we could get the sign up. I mean, we're saying sign up anytime till 15 minutes to the meeting. Can we do the sign up deadline? I mean, if we publicize as well, can't we do a deadline a little bit earlier than 15 minutes before the meeting for deadline for sign up if we publicize it well? I don't know.
We could. And also, if we have a limited number of slots, once they're gone, you won't be able to speak that night, but you'll have an opportunity to speak on night number 2 if we have to go there. If we don't get using 2 hours, that's 30 speakers. And once again, somebody wants to check my math. But if we get 28 speakers sign up before that meeting, then we know we've met what we don't have to go back and do it again.
I mean, again, I do believe, in my opinion, I think 1 meeting should be sufficient. But of course, what the committee believes, the next step is to select an alternate date if necessary. again, I do think we can make it happen in one and receive input, in other forms.
I hope we can, but obviously, Mark has a point. We don't want to disenfranchise someone from a chance to talk because 35 people want to talk and we only have space for 30, or 50 people want to talk. So we have to kind of deal with that in advance, and the eventual, if we get to that point, how we're going to deal with it. At the get-go, we publicize the first meeting.
Yeah, that's fair.
Corey, your point earlier is well taken. You may have somebody do a fairly, thinking about school board members meetings when we had sort of issues that had a lot of community input. We would have one person speak, and then sometimes we would have a second person come up and say, pretty much they'd add a couple sentences and say, I strongly agree with speaker one. And they really wouldn't use their whole 4 minutes. So
Right.
you may have some like that. I mean,
I think there'll be a lot of that.
I was kind of stupidly wondering about that. What happens if it's the same, I guess it doesn't matter, but I had that same question, Sandy.
And I guess
you have to give them an opportunity to speak their mind. I mean, even if they say I agree or the same thing, you have to give them up to their 4 minutes to say what they want about.
My point was they may not use their 4 minutes though.
I thought that's what you were saying. Yeah, so we could, I guess the time slots technically could be a little fluid depending on how quickly someone.
We can set it up so that basically there will be 2 hours of public comment. If you're on that list and you haven't been reached, you will have the opportunity to come back on this date and time to finish this up.
Okay.
So the only issue I think we still, and once again, we've got to vote on that, but we also have to decide what kind of cutoff we're going to have on sign up for public speaking at that first meeting when the list closes.
Is there anything wrong with the day before? I mean, I know you had said 15 minutes before, but I'm wondering, I mean, if it's well advertised, can't we say it cuts off the day before or 4 hours before or something where it's not just a few minutes before?
Doesn't town council shut off at noon before the meeting? I thought that's what it was.
I think I figured out they shut off about 3 hours before the meeting.
Okay.
4 hours before the meeting.
Actually, you can sign up 30 seconds before the meeting starts.
Okay, well, I went on their website and it said register 3 hours before the meeting, so it was 3:30 that day.
Yeah, the sign-up sheet out in the lobby.
We're talking about in the Zoom universe, Mark. They've changed things now, as I understand it.
Yeah, exactly.
Zoom meeting, the regular meeting,
Okay.
as long as you're in the book beforehand, you're good. Yeah. But we're obviously going to do this by Zoom because COVID's still going to be a strong guest.
Right, the Zoom meeting, what they have written on there, and I don't know whether they hold to it or not, it's 3 hours before the meeting. It's what they have written on their website.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
They'll also let us know well before the meeting whether we get everything done in one night or we have to let everyone, let certain folks know that there's a possibility, you may have to come back.
Yeah, I like the 3 hours before the meeting.
Will that be sent in to Lori or directly to your committee?
Corey, that's when you're going to have, I would assume that we probably ask Lori, whoever runs the town council meetings, to assist us with this because they've got all of the bells and whistles that we really want to do this.
What's the question?
The sign up, when people are calling in to sign up to speak, where do they direct their request?
We may ask Lori to handle it.
I think that'd be good.
It'll be our, of course, committee. I'll say me.
Yeah.
Checking them in, or someone on our team checking them in.
That makes sense.
Physically during the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys. So the thing at the table now is to shut off the public comment 3 hours before the meeting. Is there a second for a motion on that? All in favor, aye, or raise your hand. Scott, Ryan, can't see you guys or know what you're up to.
Aye.
Scott, aye.
Thank you. All right. So I think we've got to pick a date. Corey, the other thing is how we publicize this. Obviously, the town website, The Beacon, Matthews Mid-Hill Weekly ran a front page article on this. I think that would be someone we want to go catch up with too. I can't think of, and obviously all the social media the town has got going. Is there anything else that we haven't thought of that we, to get the word out on this?
No, I mean, I think electronic, promotion of it is most efficient and effective, especially, today, not wanting to physically pass out, any paper. So yeah, those medias, website, social media, likely on Nextdoor. We work with Maureen.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you could work with Maureen. Yeah.
We work with her to make sure it's promoted.
Mm-hmm.
And also town hall meetings. Are there any guidelines for when speakers can be shut off? In case comment gets. I doubt it will happen, but you never know. Do we have the ability to cut off a speaker or stop them? I don't know how town council deals with that issue.
I got the idea of town because when I was speaking, it was like going all the way around. I cut out 2 sentences because I figured I was going to get cut off if I didn't. Do they not cut them off?
Mm-hmm. You don't mean the 4 minutes. You mean in terms of?
I mean, if we get something where it becomes inappropriate or out of control, how we deal with that? I don't expect it's going to happen, but just in case.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
The 4 minutes is cold. You stop. The clock runs. You're cut off. You can. Your mouth will be moving, but no one will hear anything.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll confirm with say Lori or Charlie, but I think you as the moderator maintain the decency of the meeting.
Right. I just would like to know in advance because before we get this, I'd just like to explain to everyone the ground rules. I expect there'll be civility all the way around. I don't expect there'll be a problem, but I just want to understand what we can do if there is an issue that arises from somebody.
Click.
You have the power.
Mute.
Well, I hate to cut off public comment, without at least a set of guidelines on how to do it.
Well, I just think
depending on what it is, I think, at some point transitions from public comment to abuse or whatever, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think if our only role is whether to, sorry, Mark, 1 second. Our only role is going to be whether to endorse. We have the issue of changing the name or not, and to what? Is the sub issue that was raised about a sub designation in the park, is that also on the plate or is that out of our jurisdiction right now?
Well, I think that could be part of the decision was to maintain Stumptown Park as the name. That would be a part of that, say, recommendation if it were. Okay.
So in other words, when we publicize this, that's an option or something that if we're going to share what some of the possibilities are in advance, that's something we have to put out there also, in addition to no change or a change to something. I think the veterans were saying that there was some indication from town council that if the name were changed, they wanted it to be Stumptown as opposed to Veterans Memorial. I think somebody raised that, and I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, that was Bland. He wanted to make sure that Stumptown stayed in there. There was a misunderstanding. It was supposed to be Stumptown Veterans Memorial Park, and the word Stumptown was left out, and Bland brought that to everybody's attention.
Okay, I wasn't sure whether that was another option or not. Thanks, Mark. And you had something you wanted to say before. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, just going back to unruly speakers. I think it's just a courtesy to them to just give them a little warning to say, I find that what you're saying may be offensive to some people. I want to give you the opportunity to correct yourself before you go forward, but we want to let you finish your comments, that type of thing.
If we have that, certainly that's something we'll do. I'm just not sure. We've never had an issue where it's been a possibility before. And I just want to understand what the ground rules are for the town on how to deal with it. That's all.
Yeah, I just didn't want to be faced with a situation where you just totally cut them off at your own discretion. So in other words, give them.
No, it would.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the.
I don't expect it'll be an issue. I'm just want to know in the eventuality. I've seen these. I've almost never seen anybody go totally off the rails.
Yeah, and I agree. But it's always good to talk about it and come up with contingencies. Yep.
Okay. Now the other issue is going to be when to do this meeting, because we really do need to pick a date tonight to start getting publicity out on it. I'm sorry, Sandy. Did you want to say something else?
Let me ask one more question. And because we were talking about there are three possibilities: to keep the name always as is, keep the to change the name to Veterans Memorial Park, or keep Stumptown Park as is and designate the memorial. In other words, number three, designate the memorial as Veterans Memorial at Stumptown Park. So really, there are three options on the table. Am I right on that right now? I mean,
there are, but the options are a little wider than what you've talked about. And once again, the names that are being thrown are just suggestions, or a similar name. But whether it's Matthews Veterans Memorial Park or Stumptown Veterans Memorial Park is really the same issue. If you rename it, what do we rename it to?
Okay. I hate to be dense, but I have a question. If somebody has this thing, because obviously I put the article on my Facebook page, and while most of the people underneath the article had an opinion about, and actually the majority of them just said to keep Stumptown Park name, but one person said name it Matthews Park. I mean, is that an option that people can come up with, or are we just looking at changing one of those first three choices?
I don't think it's an option, because that's not really what the issue is about. It's not a naming free. It's whether or not the park is renamed to reflect its status.
Okay, it's just
and also we're also complicated by the fact that the town's naming policy means that if we're going to change the name of Stumptown Park, on top of what we do, there has to be a petition with 10% of signatures of households within the town of Matthews.
Yeah,
for the change.
I knew.
Just want to clarify a point. That's a policy. It's not a requirement to have 10% of the household sign.
And let me add to that. So like you mentioned, that renaming. There is a specific name listed on what has to be named on the petition. And essentially that's what
I was going to say, we need to clarify. Yeah.
That was and I believe it's Stumptown Veterans Park is the name being listed on the petition.
And so, the petition has to have how many signatures? Help me on that. 10%
of households, which
okay.
I didn't do the math. I think it was maybe a little over 1,000.
Okay.
Households, or 1,000.
But in other words, the petition, and once again, we were kind of behind the eight ball, because we found out about this, when it was already on the town council agenda. So if there is a specific name that's being raised, then we need to publicize that, so we don't get into a free for all over how about naming it this or naming it that.
Right.
Okay.
And so, the other idea is, like I said, could be, shared with the board as, say, alternatives or things that the board can consider. Because again, the policy is written, and even inside that policy, it says the town board can designate the name, say as they choose.
Sure.
And that's certainly not going to stop anybody from public comment in saying if they want to do that. They certainly have the right to say, how about naming it this? But, we're going to be somewhat handcuffed, because this is the issue that's been put before this committee.
Okay.
And I think that
helps.
Keeps it efficient and, keeps everybody on track to make comments on, this one particular name or potential name, and then everything else could sit, say, in this basket of alternatives for future consideration.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right. So I guess the next question becomes, I think we've covered what we need. The next question is when. Mark, I'm sorry. Let's see it.
Yeah, I understand there's a collaboration with the Veterans Advisory Committee. So are you having is this going to be a joint meeting between the two for public comment, or are they going to have their own public comment session?
No, we're going to hold it together. We'll work out the details, but that was the understanding we had. And I had run by, they have no conflicts anytime in January that would make it difficult, because I did ask that at the end of the last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no problem. I figured there's no point in doing it twice. If we can get it done in once, it's let's do it. Or if we have to go to a second night, we'll do it together. So, Corey, I don't know if there's a calendar or we have dates that we can talk about. Our January meeting, I think, is the 13th.
It is.
Maybe I'm wrong on that.
No,
and obviously we have to have, but if we're going to have more than one meeting, we're not going to get this wrapped up before then anyway. my suggestion is why don't we shoot for getting everything done before so that we can make the recommendation at the February meeting and move it along.
My suggestion would be to make the January meeting this public meeting, say in lieu of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting.
I think it's good.
Make it that 13th, same night everybody's accustomed to, attending the meeting. Then have enough time to wrap up, reconvene, and then discuss potentially, create an alternative 2 weeks later, if needed, and then still have time to discuss it at the February meeting as scheduled.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, can we open up the public comment fairly soon so that as soon as the publicity goes out, someone sees it, they'll have the opportunity to sign up then, as opposed to having to wait 3 weeks and forgetting about it?
Yes, and I think we can create a central location for people to send their information, just so it's not simply emails coming to me, but maybe an opportunity on the website. We can create a public comment tab, and it will be collected and housed on the website.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 13th, and then we change the time to 7 o'clock. Am I right?
Well, I guess we really didn't decide that, whether you got 6:30, 7, first of all, there's going to be 15, 20 minutes of pre-meeting, ground rules and explaining what's happening and all that stuff anyway.
I say 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Certainly, this group.
All right, so anything else that anybody wants to add about the mechanics of the public meeting, between the date and how we're going to run this thing?
I we'll talk a little bit about, format of the meeting. Again, looking at the last 15 minutes as the recap, I do think the first 15 to 20 would be, presentation of the information. I haven't created an outline yet to share with you, but that's going to be my goal for the next 2 days.
Okay.
Create the outline. Again, just showing bullet points, discussing, all the questions, and just providing the info to the public.
All right, I assume that in advance we will put out what the proposed change of name is one of the options.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have anything about this subject? Have we covered everything, or anybody thinking of anything we're forgetting about and miss that's going to, blow up on our faces at some point?
Sounds good.
No, we can make this happen.
Okay.
Howie, I know we brushed on the subject of pre-announcing what the follow-up meetings would be if necessary, but I don't think there was any decision made on that. No,
we haven't. I mean, when, Corey, we want to pick let's call it an overflow day in case we need it.
I'd almost make it
a week later?
Yeah, let's see. Yeah,
February is on the 10th. Obviously, we'd like it, at least a week or so prior to that, so everybody has time to digest what they picked up.
Tar Heels play Wake Forest that night, but the 20th.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Howie, could I suggest, if it's possible for your organization to do it in 2 consecutive nights, maybe Wednesday and Thursday, the 13th and the 14th? Is that possible for y'all?
Be for me.
I've got a problem on the. Let me just double check it. I think I've got a problem on the 14th. I do. I have a scheduling situation.
I was just trying to keep them close together for everybody's sake. But yeah, if you got a conflict, that's out of the question, I guess.
Could we do one in the daytime?
I think you may disenfranchise a number of people if you do it during the daytime.
I do too.
Because even with Zoom, we still have to go to work.
Yeah.
A lot of the public input meetings, we've done for a couple of Greenway projects. Like you sort of mentioned, Mayor, they were the same day, but it was a noon to 3 and then a 7 to 9 on the same day. A day meeting. Well, now, Howie, I guess, and with this group, if it doesn't work in your schedule, we wouldn't do. For us, it was like part of our work day, so it worked.
Well, I think we might be able to do something maybe, 2 hours in the late afternoon, then a break, and then back again. Do it all on the 13th, in other words. Like maybe 4 to 6, a break for an hour, and then 7 to 9 or something like that.
And that's not unheard of.
Just a suggestion.
Let's try that.
It works with this group.
Of course, you may get a point where, you get the signups, but they're all for the night session and you get 2 people in the afternoon session. But at least, we can do that. And if we end up the afternoon session run short, we've done it and given folks a chance to have their
So in
say.
other words, it's actually schedule 2 separate meetings. It's not just overflow. You can sign up 4 to 6 or 7 to 9. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
The time slot to speak would be limited between 4 and 6 or 7 to 9. And if one fills up, you've got the option of filling up the others.
Yeah, that works. That works.
Howie, would you have your full complement of the advisory board so they can hear all these comments during those 2 meetings?
Yeah, that would be the intention. In other words, it would be yes, because there's no point. And the vets, at least they informed me they wouldn't have an issue with it. But yes, obviously someone may get sick, things may happen, but the intention is to have every available member of this committee sitting in on both meetings so they can hear, you have to hear what's being said. You have to hear everybody in order to understand what's going on out there.
Mm-hmm.
We would record the meeting too, I'm assuming, or would you not? You'd record both meetings, so somebody could go back and listen to them later. I would want it recorded.
We would. Now, does anyone say thinking about a 4 to 6 slot? Does anyone on this committee say a conflict of 4 to 6?
I don't know about Debbie. I don't. She's on
Yeah.
yours.
I guess Debbie and John. We get feedback from them. If it works for this group, it works for me.
Yeah. And if somebody couldn't, they could go back and listen to the comments.
Right.
So,
We could.
And, the nice thing is that, if we cut it off a couple hours in advance, we may find that 4 to 6 is a lot less popular for comment. You may have only an hour or so.
yeah. That works. I like that.
And it also allows us to get everything done in one day so that you've got, a good amount of time to mull this over before our next meeting.
Okay. I like it.
I like that.
Is everybody in favor of going 4 to 6 and 7 to 9 on January 13th?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Anybody opposed to that? Voice, space, anything? Ryan, Harvey, you guys are right with that since I can't see or hear you?
Yes. Yeah.
Good.
Me.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we have a date for a meeting.
Okay. Sounds good.
Right. And I take it this sign up would be like town hall. It's not specific time slots. You're just signing up in order. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever.
Yep.
So that if we have 10 people speak at 4 o'clock, the meeting will end a lot earlier than 6 in all probability.
So help me on this one. If I wanted to, I can't sign up for 7 o'clock. If I sign up, they automatically get me 4 to 6, right?
Now, I think we'll give them the option of which they want to sign up, but they'll be in order. If you're the first one speaking, you're going to be the first one up. Then 2, it won't be your slot is 7 to 7:04, for example.
But if let's say if I worked and I couldn't get there before 7, I'd be all right to do it at 7 o'clock. I could say I want 7. I want to be
Right. Yeah. There'd be 2 separate signups for the same day based on those time slots.
Okay, that's good. That gives as much participation as possible.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we've got that taken care of. Anybody else have anything on the Stumptown Park name issue they want to talk about?
I just have
Anybody
a
else?
question, if that's okay.
What are the options for the citizens who can't attend either one of the meetings? Is there a survey or something like that, or they can just submit their questions through the website?
Yeah,
Corey, there'll be a comment section available on the website that you can do, and that will be given to everybody here, so they'll have access to it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'll create a link or a tab on the website, and then post a link to that page and multiple sources, and allow people to give their comments directly to the website.
That's good because you've allowed for as much public comment as possible and done it in different ways. I like that.
And also that'll give you some time after the meeting to read the comments, because you won't have a chance to do it at the meeting because you'll be listening to the folks there.
Right.
Mark, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just want one other qualification is I feel that they should be Matthews residents. How does everyone feel about that? Because I don't want outside speakers out of town. I mean, that's my personal preference.
I would think normally, what about if they own businesses in Matthews or I don't know. I hadn't thought about that.
That's where I just wanted to bring that up for discussion. I think being a Matthews resident is really important for this.
I agree with that.
But also with town hall, usually you get up, you give your address. So the first you hear, I'm Joe Smith, so-and-so in Matthews. So if you're hearing from a Matthews resident or a non-Matthews.
Right, but what I'm asking is when you send out requests for a petition.
Yeah, Jim, is that right? Wasn't that how it?
Well, yeah. What I was going to say. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We're talking over each other. Sorry, Mark. Mark, you are correct. I can agree with you, but the caveat is in that park, and I'm hoping that the town board and the current mayor also have that same sort of logic. So that's what we did on town board, and that's what I would suggest you do now if you can finagle that.
Right, so it's not an access issue; it's more of a waiting issue. In other words,
correct.
And so obviously, Corey, on the sign up, then we'd also want them to give us their street address.
Right, we wouldn't prevent them from speaking, but you would know.
Right, but that way we would know. In case we don't have it, otherwise we can see whether we're getting a busload from Lancaster that is just this is their thing one way or the other.
Same with public comments on the website.
Go on now.
Same with the public comments on the website.
Yes.
Require
an address. I agree with Susan.
Well, I think we should make a requirement because once again, without an address, we're not even sure whether it's at least gives it some air of legitimacy of who it's coming from as opposed to being spammed or something else.
Good.
And I mean, people would have the option. I don't think we would eliminate the option to leave a comment anonymously. I don't think they will still be able to do it, but again, be able to.
Or if they do, we just would disregard it because obviously we can't. Dealing with an anonymous comment is opening a very slippery.
Yeah, I don't like anonymous comments.
I mean,
but they can leave them, but it goes back to the weight issue.
Yeah, I've heard comments from people, and not necessarily about this project, but they just don't want their name, put out there with different neighborhood conversations that we've been having about parks and different spaces. They don't want their neighbor to know that they think differently from them, and that's. I think that's fair not to want that. Cause that whatever amongst neighbors. Again, not a access issue, but
the comments that are made on the website are public records, aren't they? They can have to be made accessible to anybody, or So yeah, once you go in there, you know, by choosing to comment, you're, you know, it's no different than standing up in a public meeting. I mean, you comment, people are going to know what you had to say.
And did I fully answer your question, Tara? I think I jumped in and started answering. I'm not sure if you were done.
You did, but then I also wondered if can only public comments be made, or can private feedback be given?
If they put comments on the website, it is a public comment because it's a public record. There's the only way they could possibly do it would be to reach out to you individually, which I really don't recommend, you know, getting involved with that at all.
Yeah.
They can send letters. Can't they send letters?
Sorry, Susan?
Can't they send letters?
Yeah, but once again, they send anything they send here is a publicly accessible document. They have to understand that if they choose to comment on this, and if someone wants to approach you at Harris Teeter, Susan, and chew your ear off, you know, I'd recommend don't do it. You know, you know, but that's the only way I can think that someone could try and get something going here without it becoming a public record.
I mean, I will share. I mean, I'll say that, you know, I've gotten phone calls, emails, and it is just this direct conversation with me giving feedback on the idea. I'm not sure how, I guess we eliminate that from consideration. It does, the more you hear, the more, say, it may influence your decision about a recommendation. I think it would be tough to just, I guess, eliminate.
Yeah, but I'm just concerned you don't want to be opening this up where each of you is going to be getting your ears talked off or approached individually. It's more trouble than it's worth, and it's not the way to do it. We have a public input meeting for a reason. All right. Anything else on this? Or I think we got it figured. At least we got the logistics figured out. Let's put it that way.
Sounds good.
Does anybody else have any new business, anything we haven't covered or you want to raise to talk about?